The making of Munch's The Scream. On December 3, 2015, I found a yellowed envelope, unaddressed and musty, in my letterbox. It contained several letters in a small envelope with a red seal. I sat on the armchair by the fireplace and opened the small envelope. It contained a plea written by Norwegian businessman Peter Olsen, urging the finder to publish the letters and thus fulfill Edvard Munch's final wish. Letter 1, 1995, District Prosecutor's Office, Oslo, Archive Materials, Pal Enger. At 6:30 a.m. on February 12, 1994, Saturday morning, I climbed the National Gallery building with a ladder. I cut the cord on which the painting hung, removed the frame, and left. Prosecutor: Why did you steal the painting? Pal Enger: Hold your horses, Venerable. Then I hid the painting under the table where my mother and uncles ate cookies every night. Prosecutor: That's enough, Mr. Pal. Pal Enger laughs. Isn't that art? Dining on Munch's Scream. Prosecutor: Why did you steal the painting? Pal Enger: If you were given $100,000 to do one job, wouldn't you accept? Prosecutor: Mr. Enger, who sent you the letter? Letter 2, 2006, Primary Court, 2, Oslo, Archive Materials, Bjorn Hoen. We received an envelope containing €100,000 and a letter. The letter contained instructions. We were supposed to steal a painting from the National Gallery. The sender guaranteed us complete protection. Prosecutor: Do you know the sender's name? Bjorn Hoen: No. Prosecutor: Do you have the letter? Bjorn Hoen: I was instructed to burn it. Prosecutor: If you were only following instructions, why damage the painting? Bjorn Hoen: Because we couldn't sell it, it was worthless. Prosecutor: Do you have any idea whose painting it was you stole? Bjorn Hoen: I didn't at the time, but found out later from the papers. I think the painter's called Much or something. Prosecutor: Munch. Bjorn Hoen: Right, this Much, or whatever his name is, he ruined us. He's the reason you picked up on our trail. Peter turns to one of the defendants. You idiot, you gave the painting to an art dealer for an estimate. Letter 3, Nursemaid Theodora, the Netherlands, May, 1851. Is this the prostitute you dare bring into our venerable house, overflowing with divine secretions? You mean to wed this courtesan, Anna Cornelia Carbentus, even though you know she's heavy with another man's child? Will you bestow your honorable name, Theodorus van Gogh, a minister of the Dutch Reformed Church, to an offspring conceived by another man? Can't you see? She's carrying a bastard. She approached Anna and spat on her stomach. And what will you call this bastard, Theodorus? Will you give it our holy name? Your forefathers buried their bones, etching their name on this theological threshold. We have decided, mother. The baby's name will be Vincent van Gogh. Theodorus answered in a low voice. I'm your mother no more. Oh, she sighed, your father is still fresh in his grave, and what do? Traitor, Vincent van Gogh, your grandfather's name? God damn you, he sculpted Madonna. Is that the name you intend to smear? I curse you both. May this threshold embrace you in your shameless blood and scorch you with everlasting fire. Letter the 4th of September, 1867, the Netherlands, Nursemaid. Theodora's correspondence. Vincent was born in 1852 and passed away during delivery. People said the prayers of Theodorus's mother had been too loud for God to ignore. A year later, when Mars aligned with Jupiter and opposed the Sun, strong winds swept across the Netherlands. It was March 30th, 1853, the month of the Ram. Anna Cornelia, in violent throes from the root of her outstretched legs and into the midwife's arms, produced a baby with blonde eyebrows and astonishingly long blonde hair. They gave him the name Vincent Willem van Gogh. Anna Cornelia hated the Van Gogh family. She longed to repay them for the shame they brought upon her in the eyes of the Dutch people and for her exclusion from the Reformed Church. It was mostly the Van Gogh children who were the victims of her angry outbursts. Poor young Vincent was often forced to kneel on wheat kernels for hours. Then, when his knees were covered in wounds, she wept over them. She kissed them and sloppily smeared her face with the blood. Thus, with a bloodied face, she would run around the house. I locked myself in my room and cried. Vincent was coy and often bullied. One day, out in the wheat fields, he was flinging stones at the birds along with his peers. Your grandma is a witch, said one of them. Vincent clenched his fist, approached the boy, and hit him in the face. The other kids knocked him down. I tried to free him but found myself on the ground. They tore his shirt and tied him to a fence. Your brother's dead. Your brother's dead. Your grandma's curses killed him. You're a freak, you're damned. The grinning children yelled in his face. Vincent shook his head, inhaled deeply, and moaned. Alas, I could not help him. When the kids let him go, Vincent ran home crying. For a while, we lingered in front of the family house. Once he restrained his agitation, we went inside. We agreed to keep the incident our secret. He always had God on his lips. He knew that one day he would deliver him from suffering. That night, Vincent expressed theological aspirations for the first time. Johannes Stricker, his uncle, invited him to the neighboring town for some spiritual guidance. Vincent, now a 10-year-old, arrived in his uncle's house. Stricker resented Theodorus van Gogh because several years earlier he had not paid him his share of the sales of his volume, The Life of Jesus Christ. December 12, 1863, at 10 p.m., a storm broke. It scared Vincent, and he hid in his uncle's bed. From the letters I found in Vincent's room, these were his impressions. Before I fell asleep, my uncle put his hand on my penis, a 10-year-old undeveloped larva. He took my clothes off, gently pushed my body, and pulled at my hips. With his fingers, he gently caressed the skin of the place where I make little turds and said, "These are the hardships that ministers must endure." Once he fell asleep, I loosened his grip and ran away from the house. I hid in a garden among potato leaves. It was cold and damp. Lightning. I'd never seen it before. It was beautiful. In an open field, having left his uncle's house, Van Gogh contemplated suicide for the first time. At that time, I received a letter from my sister Nina, who lives in Norway, in the poor Munch family. In Norway, as I write, Miss Munch's cervix is widening. The first one is a boy, the midwife exclaimed. In even greater pains, the mother also brought into the world a twin sister. The boy's name is Edvard Munch, and the little girl is Laura Munch. The next day, before dawn, Vincent returned home on foot. He did not say why he had cut short his stay at his uncle's house. A few days later, the Van Gogh family received a telegram from the Ministry Council of the Dutch Reformed Church, strictly prohibiting Vincent's entrance in the ministerial fraternity. Mr. Van Gogh sent a telegram to the council at once, inquiring as to the reason for this interdiction, but never received an answer. In the meanwhile, Vincent took a job in a Dordrecht bookshop. Here he was acquainted with astrology. Studying the stars, Vincent realized that other planets must exist, where life might also flourish. Studying communication, he read that it required a sender, message, frequency, intelligible language, ether, and receiver. Later in life, he would try to communicate with beings from other planets. Armed with this new knowledge, he decided to leave theology behind and defy his father. His brother Theo helped Vincent go to Paris. There, he attended lessons in anatomy and geometry. A few months later, again in large part due to Theo's efforts, he took the entrance examination of the Royal Academy of Sciences. Vincent found joy playing with colors. He began to paint. His family suffered financial hardships, the price of colors exceeding their spending power. Vincent's mother experimented with various household materials to create the white. To obtain the primary colors, she mixed poppy and coca seeds with various herbs. Then she blended the mixture with cow dung, chloroform, ether, and codeine. With the new colors, Van Gogh revisited his childhood for the first time. He recalled the childhood episode where he was tied to the fence of the wheat field. He recalled his dead half-brother. Using colors, he began to communicate with him. Regarding his painting process, he once wrote, "The painting technique I use, I discovered myself. I apply a broad layer of color on the canvas, a layer where the lines of the brush bristles are visible. In portraits, I paint the face slightly askew, but whenever I paint other objects, houses, bridges, I render the lines and contours precisely. The universe, human faces, and abstract notions shown on my canvas I present with a certain degree of caricature, since they vary depending on the availability of information, which is to say, communication requires frequency." His letter also said he was communicating with creatures with large heads and wide eyes. Letter the 5th of September 1890, Loten, Norway, Nina's correspondence. A tuberculosis epidemic swept Norway in 1880. The Munch family, save for Edvard and Laura, was stricken with the disease. One day, observing the people dying on the streets, Edvard uttered a pained scream. These were the first images that acquainted him with life, leaving an indelible mark. Later, he transferred the images onto his canvas. Edvard painted bridges and faceless drifting figures. However, paintings are primarily made to be sold. In his hometown of Loten, Edvard was introduced to a Dutch art dealer called Theo van Gogh. They met in a tavern, and after a few glasses of aquavit, Edvard confided his family's difficult condition to Theo. The Dutchman offered to take Laura to Amsterdam and find work for her. He also took a few of Edvard's paintings to display in his gallery. In their compartment on the train to Amsterdam, Theo violently ravished Laura's virginity. From that day, she was his possession. He renamed her Rachel. The train arrived in Amsterdam. After living with her for a few months, he offered Rachel on the open market. She dreaded him. Theo sent the money she earned to her brother Edvard, keeping a certain percentage for herself. In 1882, after a difficult struggle with tuberculosis, Munch's parents died. Theo took Vincent and Rachel to Arles. Vincent, now a failed painter and a drunk, fell in love with the prostitute, his brother's property. He defied Theo, demanding a duel, but they reached an agreement, as Theo hired his brother to produce a gallery of images for the Yellow House. He would buy the necessary materials, procuring the right to the sales revenue, while Vincent would get Rachel in return. The agreement transferred Rachel's ownership to Vincent. In Arles, the two rented a room with 2 beds, which they later conjoined. Vincent produced some 10 paintings for the Yellow House in 2 days. Dazed by the hallucinogenic colors, he began to fear that he would lose Rachel. In her sleep, he tried to cut off her tongue with a razor blade. Rachel fled the apartment. Delirious, he found her in a bordello 2 blocks away. In an act of contrition, he cut off his left ear and murmured, tears streaming down his face, "This is a token of my future obedience." Rachel took the ear fragment, wrapped it in a silk handkerchief, and left him forever. He fainted due to blood loss. Van Gogh spent a few days in the hospital. His father came to visit and learned of his love affair with the prostitute. They fought bitterly. Willem sent Theo a letter in which he thanked him for causing the stormy scene with his father and demanded that they renounce their brotherhood. Only Vincent's mother stayed with him. After his recuperation, she continued to produce colors for his paintings, but now she added large amounts of tar. Due to its strong narcotic effects, Vincent suffered from periodontitis. He lost all his teeth in less than a year. In 1888, Munch received sad news. His sister was murdered by a failed painter named Van Gogh. He knew of him only from her letters, in which she had sent a silk handkerchief containing a fragment of Van Gogh's ear. An episode which occurred just 2 days later made the news of the murder even crueler. The bell in Munch's home rang. He crawled out of bed and came to the front door. On the other side stood a courier, holding a package wrapped in a nylon bag. He signed and took the package. He sat at the dining table and opened it. It contained a small aluminum box. When he opened the box, a strong stench made him flinch and move away. Inside the box lay half a human heart. He threw up. A loud scream tore from his chest, the decibel intensity of which some neighbors, in a later conversation with the police, likened to the volcanic eruptions of the Indonesian island Krakatau. In the box, he found a small note with the words written in blood. "One half belongs to you, yours, Vincent." That morning, Munch decided to avenge his sister's murder. In the afternoon, he visited the Norwegian Academy of Sciences. From the conversation he had with a scholar there, he found out about Gauguin's exhibition in Paris. The academic spoke with a smirk, saying that Gauguin underestimated himself, seeing as he let an unknown impressionist, Vincent Willem van Gogh, display a few paintings too. Letter the 6th of November, 1895, Loten, Norway. Nina's correspondence. Munch was determined to kill Van Gogh. He arrived in Paris. He exhibited his vast knowledge of canvases and colors, which secured him a job in a canvas store. He took on a different name, Christian Morier Peterson. Regarding his first contact with Van Gogh, his autobiography states, "One afternoon when Van Gogh walked in to buy a canvas, he smelled very badly, had no teeth, smoked a cigarette, and spoke to me in a vulgar manner, thus only confirming his barbarism. Van Gogh invented an imaginary character, Dr. Gachet. It was this doctor that prescribed him a stay in the sanatorium. He painted Gachet and then spoke with the painting. Conversation made things easier, he realized. This is how he painted Gauguin's chair. Gauguin became the only critic of his art. To facilitate the exchanges, he painted his empty chair. He painted the worn-out shoes and the White House. He had a premonition. He was anxious how he would arrive at the White House with worn-out shoes. He painted wheat fields. He saw his old sunflowers. He painted the starry night, a salute to the creatures he communicated with. He painted a country bridge, and in the end he painted at Eternity's Gate. In May 1890, he was admitted as a permanent resident in the sanatorium in Auvers-sur-Oise. December 5th, 1890, my sister died. I went to the Van Gogh estate. I asked about Vincent, but almost everyone had disowned him. They told me not to mention that traitor's name. On Van Gogh's death, who killed him and why, and the reason why the murder was kept from the public, my notes regarding that fateful July 25th, 1890, a quiet July night, the 25th day of the month. Drought. Only the heat, chattering away with the grasshoppers. In Auvers-sur-Oise, Van Gogh was sitting on the hospital bed. His gaze was lost in the dark. He escaped at lunchtime, jumped over the hospital gates and made for the fields. On his way, he felt a presence. He turned back a few times. He feared someone from the hospital was after him. In the sun's glare, He recognized the shadow of the canvas seller. He was carrying a bag with canvases on his back. Vincent slowed down and they walked together, talking for hours. They reached the fields of Auvers-sur-Oise and stopped by the wheat. Van Gogh stood straight. Munch lowered the bag from his shoulders, unfolded the canvas, and a shotgun appeared. He pumped it and the shot expelled Vincent's soul from his chest. The blood splattering behind Van Gogh painted the sky red. With Munch at his side, Van Gogh fought death for 2 days. Here Munch created his renowned scream. It seemed that, at the sunset of Van Gogh's life, Munch saw his true face, the one Vincent had always tried to reveal, that of a being from another planet occupying a terrestrial body. He painted his head like an alien, his mouth agape like in the moment the bullet begat his death. The alien figure was toothless, like Vincent. Munch painted the sky red, like the blood stifling the blue expanse. He painted the fields and then saw with his own eyes the 2 specters coming for Vincent's soul. He captured them for all eternity, along with Van Gogh's soul, in his scream. The hospital staff covered up the truth about Vincent van Gogh's death. They discovered his body and took him to the hospital. They claimed he committed suicide in his room. Many questions arose. How did he smuggle a shotgun into the hospital? Why were his clothes covered in dust? Why was only the bed covered in blood? The hospital director summoned Vincent's father so they could come to an arrangement. The family received large reparations. To wash away the shame Vincent had brought on the family, they pronounced his death a suicide, proving to the world he had not been a true Protestant after all. In order to achieve world fame, which was revealed to him in communication with the future, Van Gogh wrote of himself in his notebook before dying, "I fought them heroically, but they're too loud for me, and I will kill myself." Letter the 7th of November, 1897, Loten, Norway, Munch's correspondence. I spent the entire afternoon with Nina. She was meek as always. We drank tea. She handed over all the letters. She knew about the murder. Letter the 8th of January, 1944, Loten, Norway, Munch's correspondence. Dear Olsen, I can sense my death knell has sounded. Please receive the letters enclosed. I know you have strong ties in the publishing world. I want you to know that a single painting conceals 1,000 words. The world must know the true story. Please don't ask me why. All these years I had his blood on my hands. Yours, Edvard.